This is another podcast from Alpha Business Media. There's this quiet revolution happening in Nepal. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's powerful. It's being led by young people, and they're not just starting any old business. They're launching ventures with a real mission.
A mission to tackle some really big problems, right? Things like environmental crises, deep social inequalities, the tough stuff.
Exactly. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into this fascinating world of social entrepreneurship in Nepal. We've got some great source material, compelling articles, solid research, and some truly inspiring real-world stories. They really paint a picture of this movement.
Yeah, the stories are quite something.
Our goal for you, the listener, is to really unpack why this is happening now. What do these businesses actually look like on the ground?
And what's the impact, the ripple effect across the country?
Right. You'll get a shortcut to understanding this unique kind of bottom-up development model. There are some surprising facts and, honestly, some incredibly inspiring insights. Let's start with a story that really captures the spirit of this whole thing. Ambika Phuyal.
Ah, yes, Ambika.
She was a housewife, lived in the Jitpurphedi community, never really saw herself as an entrepreneur. Not at all.
And then this NGO came along offering training in making liquid soap.
Yeah, and both she and her husband were, well, skeptical is putting it mildly. It just didn't seem like something for them.
But then something clicked. As she learned the process, the mixing, like chemistry almost.
A spark.
Exactly, a spark. Despite everyone around her being unsure, she saw something simple but powerful.
What was that?
Soap is an essential part of daily life. It's basic, a need. And she realized she could meet that need.
So she went for it, despite the doubts.
She did. Invested her own time, her own money. It was a leap of faith.
And the result, it's quite remarkable.
It really is. Today, Ambika runs a successful small business. Supplies soap locally, restaurants, schools, neighbors.
But it's more than just a business, isn't it?
Oh, much more. She's financially independent now, which is huge. But maybe even more importantly, she's become this role model.
A beacon for other women in her community.
Precisely. And her story, while personal, it's not unique. It's just one example of this wave that's growing across Nepal.
Okay, so let's get into the why. Why Nepal? What makes it such fertile ground, maybe surprisingly so, for this kind of social innovation? Why now?
That's the core question, really. You have to look at Nepal's specific context. It's a place with enormous challenges, yes, but those challenges also create these huge opportunities for doing things differently.
Like the economic instability.
Exactly. The economy leans heavily on remittances, money sent home from abroad, and tourism. Both are really vulnerable to global shocks, like we saw with the pandemic.
And the political side.
Decades of turbulence, civil war, those devastating earthquakes in 2015, they've all weakened state institutions.
Which means
Chronic underfunding for essentials, health, education, they suffer. And there's this feeling in society, that the government just can't solve everything on its own.
And you still have significant poverty and inequality.
Absolutely. High poverty rates persist. And the inequality is stark. Research shows the richest 10% own something like 26 times more wealth than the poorest 40%.
Wow, 26 times. That's a massive gap.
It is. And you layer on top of that some of the worst road infrastructure in Asia, which hampers everything.
How does that specific wealth gap, that 26-to-1 ratio, directly fuel social entrepreneurship?
Right.
Is it more than just general poverty?
Oh, definitely. It's a direct catalyst. When you have such a huge chunk of the population basically locked out of traditional economic pathways, it creates this urgent need for different kinds of solutions.
Solutions focused on inclusion.
Precisely. Inclusive employment, fair access to goods and services. That's the space where social enterprises really step in. That inequality isn't just a problem, it's effectively a market failure, a gap these innovators see and try to fill.
And then there's the youth factor.
A huge factor. More than half the population is under 24. Many are educated, even have degrees, but there just aren't enough formal sector jobs.
So they hit a wall.
They do. And it forces thousands to look for work abroad, which drains the country of its brightest young minds.
So it's in that gap, the failure of markets, the limitations of the state.
Exactly. That vacuum is where social entrepreneurship becomes not just like a nice idea, but a really practical alternative.
It sounds like for these young Nepalis, it's a way to combine making a living with making a difference.
Yes. It offers that chance to earn money and tackle the problems they see every single day. It gives financial stability, sure, but also that deep sense of purpose.
Which makes staying and building something in Nepal more appealing than leaving.
Often, yes. And there's another important shift happening too, away from old-style charity.
You mean the model of just giving handouts, beneficiaries?
Right. That model can sometimes view people passively. These new businesses, they're building partnerships. They see people as clients, as partners.
Like that clothing example you mentioned.
Exactly. An organization started by giving away free clothes. Seemed good, right? But they found it created weird dynamics, even inequality.
So they changed tack.
They did. Switched to selling the clothes at a very minimal price. It covered their costs, yes, but more importantly, it restored dignity. It created accountability.
And built a foundation for something sustainable, not reliant on donors.
Precisely. A really powerful lesson in that pivot.
Okay, so we've got the context. Let's define it clearly. What exactly is a social enterprise in Nepal? How is it different from a standard charity or a regular business?
Well, put simply, it's using business tools, commercial strategies to achieve social goals.
So not pure charity.
No. Unlike traditional nonprofits, NPOs that rely on donations and grants, social enterprises aim to be financially self-sufficient. They sell goods or services to generate their own income.
Okay, but lots of businesses do good things. How is this different from, say, corporate social responsibility?
That's the key distinction. For a regular business, profit is usually the bottom line, the main measure of success. For a social entrepreneur, it's about a double or even triple bottom line.
Meaning
They track financial sustainability, yes, but equally positive social impact and often environmental care, too. The social mission isn't an add-on, it's the core reason they exist.
it's baked in from the start.
Exactly. As some experts say, they genuinely mix profit with purpose. Profit isn't the end goal. It's the fuel to expand and deepen the social mission.
So they operate in this kind of hybrid space.
Often, yes, filling niches where the market hasn't met public needs. The main thing is the social goal drives everything they do. It's primary, not secondary.
Right, that makes sense. And the best way to understand this is through the stories, these engines of change. Let's dive into some specifics.
Absolutely. We see amazing innovation across the board. Take the environment, the push for a greener Nepal, the population growth, especially around Kathmandu, puts huge pressure on resources.
Leading to pollution, waste problems.
Big time. A real waste management crisis. But young innovators are stepping up with business solutions.
Like what? How do you turn waste into a business?
Well, take Khaleesi, means empty bottles. It's a digital platform. Simple idea, really connects households wanting to recycle with the informal waste pickers.
So it streamlines the process.
Yeah, makes collection more efficient, more dignified. It increases the picker's income and boosts recycling rates. Very smart.
That's clever. What else?
Then you have companies like Doco Recyclers and Biocomp. They show a whole circular economy ecosystem emerging.
Yeah.
Doco helps businesses and homes manage waste properly.
And biocop.
Takes the organic waste and turns it into high-quality compost. So it tackles waste and helps degraded soil at the same time.
Solving two problems at once.
Exactly. And then there's Smart Palani. They focus on water scarcity, offering affordable solutions like rainwater harvesting systems, wastewater treatment for homes, addressing a critical need directly.
It's impressive how they're tackling these huge environmental issues with practical, local solutions. But what about the social side? Creating a fairer Nepal.
Equally important and equally challenging. Deep inequality persists, especially for women and marginalized groups. Limited access to jobs, economic opportunities.
And social entrepreneurs are challenging that.
Directly. Look at Hadi Hadi Nepal. They empower vulnerable women, teaching them dressmaking skills, and they use recycled saris to make beautiful clothes and accessories.
Ah, so combining environmental consciousness with women's empowerment.
Precisely. Or think back to Sharmila Adhikari and her mushroom farm. She got training, an interest-free loan, built a successful business.
But she didn't stop there. Right?
No, that's the incredible part. She formed a group of 23 other women, helped them get started too. It triggered this chain reaction.
That multiplier effect we talked about.
Yes. And then there's the Sukawati store. Really unique. They sell used goods affordably to low-income families, but crucially, they specifically create jobs for people with physical and mental disabilities.
Directly tackling their social isolation.
And providing real, meaningful work. Fostering inclusion.
What strikes me here is how many of these examples, like Hadi Hadi, seem to blend the environmental and the social. They don't see them as separate boxes.
That's such a key insight. They absolutely see the deep connection. Projects like Hadi Hadi or another one called Shakti Milan that makes bags from recycled materials while employing women. They have this holistic view.
How so?
They understand that women, for instance, are often disproportionately hit by climate change and poverty. So empowering women isn't just social good, it's a core strategy for building a sustainable future for everyone.
That integrated thinking seems really characteristic.
It really is. Seeing the whole picture, the interconnectedness of these problems, is a defining feature of Nepalese social entrepreneurship.
So we've seen these individual successes, Ambika, Sharmila, these great companies, but let's zoom out. What's the bigger ripple effect? How is this transforming Nepal's society and economy more broadly?
That's where you see the systemic potential. Economically, these social enterprises, like all SMEs really, are crucial job creators.
Especially when the state or big industry can't provide enough jobs.
Exactly. They create meaningful work, especially for young people and women who often face the biggest hurdles in the job market. And by building local supply chains, local services, they help keep money within communities.
Making local economies stronger, more resilient.
Yes, less dependent on outside forces. SMEs already contribute around 22% to Nepal's GDP, which is significant, and social enterprises are playing a bigger and bigger part in that.
And the social impact goes beyond just jobs and money, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's much deeper. For women, for marginalized groups, earning their own income. It's financial freedom, yes, but it's also a huge boost in confidence.
Giving them more say in things.
Definitely. A greater role in decisions at home, in the community. Plus, these businesses become like informal training grounds. People learn practical skills, marketing, finance, leadership stuff you often don't get in formal education.
Real world skills.
Exactly. And maybe most fundamentally, they're changing mindsets. Shifting perceptions about the value of waste, about what women are capable of, about the potential of people with disabilities, breaking down old stereotypes.
Sharmila's story really brought that multiplier effect home for me. Not just her success, but helping 23 others start. It's that ripple outward.
It is. These social entrepreneurs aren't just business owners. They become community leaders, ecosystem builders. Their success genuinely inspires others.
Creating, as the research calls it, a stable ecosystem around a new equilibrium.
That's the academic term, yeah. But it basically means they're building the foundation for real, lasting change. Change that happens from the ground up, driven by local people solving local problems.
It's incredibly powerful. But let's be realistic. It can't all be smooth sailing. What are the big obstacles these entrepreneurs are actually facing on the ground in Nepal?
No, it's definitely not easy. The path is full of significant hurdles. One of the biggest, perhaps surprisingly, is the lack of a clear legal definition or status for social enterprises.
How does that cause problems?
Well, imagine trying to register your business, figure out taxes, deal with regulations, when the government doesn't quite know what box to put you in. It creates a lot of confusion and bureaucracy, which can really slow things down.
Okay, so a legal framework issue. What else? Funding must be a big one.
Huge. Access to funding is critical. Social enterprises often fall into this gap, this valley of death, as it's sometimes called.
Meaning?
They're often seen as too commercial, too businesslike for traditional grant funding from charities or NGOs. But then their social mission can make purely profit-driven investors or banks nervous.
So they're caught in the middle.
Exactly. Too risky for traditional investors, not charitable enough for traditional donors, and the scale of the problem is massive. The overall SME financing gap in Nepal is estimated at something like $2.8 billion.
Wow, $2.8 billion? That's a lot of potential left unfunded.
It really is. And on top of that, they face all the general challenges of doing business in Nepal, poor infrastructure, those frustrating power outages, navigating red tape.
It sounds like a formidable set of challenges. But you mentioned a support ecosystem is emerging. Things are changing.
Yes, thankfully. There's growing recognition and help starting to materialize, which is very encouraging. The Nepalese government, for example, is starting to see the importance of startups.
Are they putting policies in place?
They are. Things like the Nepal Startup Fund, trying to make it easier for a foreign direct investment to come in. It's a start.
And international organizations.
They play a really key role. You have the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, specifically funding local banks so they can offer loans designed for women entrepreneurs.
That's targeted support.
Very. And the ILO, the International Labor Organization, is working on creating a better overall environment for sustainable businesses. UNICEF has its Ideas Studio, supporting young innovators right at the beginning.
And what about local support within Nepal?
Crucial. There's a growing network of really dedicated Nepali organizations, groups like Bika Sutami and Any Dai, providing mentoring, training, and advocating for these young entrepreneurs, building that local capacity.
So putting it all together, this wave of social entrepreneurship in Nepal, it feels like much more than just a trend or a collection of nice stories.
It really does. It feels like a fundamental shift driven by young people in how the country approaches development.
They're not waiting around for perfect conditions, are they?
Not at all. They're impatient in a good way. They're building that better future right now, tackling problems directly, one venture, one innovation at a time.
It really embodies a new vision for Nepal, doesn't it?
I think so. A vision that's more sustainable, definitely more inclusive, and ultimately more self-reliant, built from within.
So for you, our listener, here's something to mull over as we wrap up. Think about that valley of death funding gap we discussed. It's a huge challenge, yes, but maybe it's also a global opportunity.
An opportunity for what?
For real innovation in finance. What kind of investment fund, what kind of financial tools could be specifically designed to bridge that gap? Not just in Nepal, but for similar movements springing up worldwide.
That's a fascinating question. How do you value social return alongside financial return?
Exactly. How might we need to fundamentally redefine what return on investment even means if we want to truly accelerate these vital kinds of changes, changes that value both profit and purpose? Something to think about.